G'day everyone, welcome to the Opal Mills. Today we're going to do some silversmithing, but just wanted to show you a few things while I've got them. So I've been sent a couple of stones to be set, and I didn't cut these. We have a matrix and a solid black. We'll get to those in a minute. But same person has sent me some of this material, and this is from White Cliffs. Now, not sure, some of you may have seen stuff like this before. When you get palm wood, it's fossilized. Let me zoom in, make the camera do the work. And so, depending on how you cut the wood, depends on what kind of a pattern you'll get. As all these were porous little holes where the timber was growing, or wood, palm wood, and that I'm thinking is where the water would have been absorbed up into the plant. So they've cut it straight across here and looked straight down onto the top, and it's been polished, this piece. But this is just a piece. This is a piece of fossilized palm. So over in White Cliffs in New South Wales, they get this. Zoom back out. So this is the chunks that apparently were thrown back down a shaft to fill it in because it was deemed not worth anything, I assume. But it's got some great texture on it. I'm not sure if the camera's going to fully pick up all this, but very well preserved. In some cases here, that's obviously had the bark come off it. That's the inner part. It's more probably a piece that's broken off the bark, or the outer crust, whatever you want to call it with palm. And so it's, yeah, nice bits of fossilized palm wood. To slice it up, it may not look too much. We'll just open this one up too. But sometimes the pores do fill, in this case with opal, and sometimes some nice colour. So if we get a bit of water, you sort of see all that purple and blue and all the colour in there. And this, being technically a matrix, is treatable. And this person sent me a piece treated and cut out of this pile. And this is what it comes up like. Fingerprints off it. Kind of reminiscent of boulder in some instances from Queensland, the ironstone boulder. But yeah, so that's a piece like that. It's been treated, and it's got some, yeah, nice little pinfire sparkles coming out everywhere. Just dances around. Actually looks quite good in person, better than the camera. Sorry guys. But yeah, so there we go. That's something a bit different, and I've never seen it quite like this before. Treated and all. So I've always seen fossils and I've never wanted to touch them. I just keep them as fossils. But here some of the work's done. So just to give you an idea, there is a fair bit of these pieces, and I am going to try and make some available. So more than likely on Facebook, the Opal Mills Facebook site. I'll put a link or something in here. in the description if I decide to put it up, or when I decide to put it up, and it's available. Sorry if you're not on Facebook. I'm not really a Facebook person either, but yeah, giving it a go. So anyway, we'll put these aside and have a look at these other two stones. So here, they're quite a pretty piece of Andemuka matrix. It's been treated. But wow, that has got some fantastic colour in it. It is double-sided for the most part, but even though the colour's kind of like really nice under there, I'm pretty sure, even though it's just as nice up here, that this is the top. But it'd definitely be an open back setting. So we're going to make a men's ring for this one. And in this bag, you can get it open. There's a solid black, blue opal. And I'm pretty sure this is Lightning Ridge. Cushion cut. So that'll be another, I reckon, that way up. And these are going to be size 15. So large rings. And I'm going to get the silver set up and we'll start making up. These are both going to be bezel set. And they're going to have a sort of a thick half round for the band. So I'll get the silver out and we'll start getting into it. So this video I'm also going to be able to show, there's a couple of people have asked about soldering and that. I'll go through the soldering bit a bit better, well explained. We'll play around a bit with some solder and some scrap, just to give you an idea. Alright, so we've got a 3.8 and a 5.6 carat stones, just for interest's sake. And we're going to be using half round for the band, 3x1mm bezel. The black one will have a back on, just because, and this one will have an open back for obvious reasons. So that's going to have a little wire step on the inside of the bezel, and they're just going to fit. I'll probably cut out a gap in the ring to set the setting into. I think I'll also be playing around a bit just to show you a few things with the soldering. So first and foremost, I'm going to neaten up this end, ready to make a size 15 ring. We'll make 2 of these. I think I've shown this sort of thing before. Just bending the ring around the mandrel, make sure it fits the right size. So I'll show a bit of that. Alright, so first things first, when we go to bend silver, especially this thick, you can't just bend it straight off and expect it to handle it, not a problem. So the last thing that happened to this was it was drawn through a hole, that shape, half round, and pulled straight through, extruded to that size. So whether it got a tempering then or not, I'm not sure, or an annealing. It's been a while since it's had an annealing. Annealing refers to the molecules in the silver. So you got silver and copper in there, and they're molecules that are bonded, and they like to be evenly spaced to have even temper, if you will, hardness. So if I take this and start bending it, what I'm essentially doing is squashing all the little molecules on the inside closer together whilst stretching the outside ones further apart. So to anneal is to even up that molecular alignment throughout the silver. So before I start bending, I'm just going to make sure that it's nice and even by annealing it before I bend it. It also momentarily softens the silver. It'll go hard again after a little while, but it becomes a bit better pliable as well, especially for silver this thick. So that's another reason to heat it before we work it. But the main reason is for the molecules. So with a piece this thick, once I start bending it, especially to a ring, it's going to go right the way around with a nice tight inside circle. It may need annealing halfway through bending it, just to gradually bring it round and keep it nice and even. Otherwise, you can actually stretch to the point of splitting the outside, or you'll bunch up the inside, and that's not good. So we want an even bending from straight to round. So I'm going to go ahead and start heating this now. Excuse me. Over here I have a few different tips. I had bought this handpiece and these two came with it, and I bought this one separately. I'll rolly over here. So this is a bit of a needlepoint size bit, whereas these are a bit more, gas comes out, a lot of heat. So I call it high, medium, low. This is more so when you heat the silver to solder, and I'll go through that in a bit, you need to heat the whole piece up, bring it up to temperature, because silver steals heat. It wants to spread the heat evenly and distribute it between itself. It's a great conductor. And yeah, so sometimes you don't want the whole piece to heat up and you've only got fine little bits, like sometimes you're tacking some claws on. You just want a little bit of heat in one spot specifically without melting the whole thing apart. So this helps give you a finer work tip. But for this, medium will do, and that'll give us enough heat to bring this up to essentially a dull glow. Not a cherry red or anything, we just need a dull glow. That means it's heating up and it's, I suppose, expanding, realigning itself, and then we'll quench it and go and bend it. Alright, now we don't pick this up with our hands. A pair of tweezers. And just go down, a little bucket of water. There we go. Job done. So this is my main end. You can see it's gone a bit blackened by comparison all the way up to this end. I probably didn't heat this end up to anneal it as well, but this end is much softer now to apply it. So we're going to get over and beat it around the mandrel, start getting into shape and size. Alright, actually for this I can use my ring forming pliers, round on the inside, flat on the out, so we don't leave little dents as we squish it, and start making it a bit rounder so I don't have to hammer it so hard. I'm just going to give it a little bit of a start to bend it into shape as I move the pliers round. You can come back, get a bit tighter curve. This is where we can get onto the mandrel. So our mandrel, it's size 15. It's somewhere all the way down past here. I think it's about size 3 there. There's a size 15. So we'll get it down there. Beating it. Okay, so I've gotten that down and I've looked it up. It's a size past size 3, so if there was a size 4, it'd be down here somewhere. So we're going to straddle this roughly over that, somewhere there. Then we're going to mark this and cut it. Alright, so here's our 2 rings. Open them up a bit. I'm just going to bend them down like that, a touch. Out of shape, but I want these 2 edges to meet face on. Now I haven't gone to too much effort to really do such a super great join, as much as it will be a good join, as I'll be cutting this section out anyway. Bit of manual pressure. Okay, so what I've done here is 2 different ways. So for starters, you've got to put your flux on. Flux is important. It cleans the surface, keeping the oxygen away from the silver, because as soon as silver touches oxygen, it oxidizes on the surface. Oxidized silver, solder will not adhere to. So to remove the oxygen layer, we use flux. Now, one theory can go this way. We can put the flux on and we can put our solder on right where we want it. And we'll do one without. This is my preferred method. This is another way to do it. Either which, horses for courses. So what I'm going to do is heat it up. It's going to bubble around. This one's going to bubble around. Now, yes, if I bring it up slowly, that solder should sort of stay where it is. We'll see how we go. We don't need much heat. And it's sliding already. So we have to pick him back up, playing around. And he's bubbling everywhere. There we go. So now we want that little bead to run into our gap. See, I'm having to place him back up there again. This is what I find fiddly. There we go, it went in. It's not a problem, you can do it this way. See, I'm adding more solder. This is basically the way I want to do the whole thing on the other one. Place the solder without having to add more flux. The flux has already done its job. There's technically no need for more flux. So that's one way there. Successful join, not a problem. Suck it through to the back. Done. Now the second way is, I'm just going to burn my flux off. That flux is going to stay there, creating a clear layer. protecting the silver from oxygen. Let's burn all this off. There you go. Bring it back to a nice white colour. I can see my join again. So now I'm going to take my flux. Sorry, my solder. I'm going to place it over the join. Bring the whole ring back up to heat, then focus my heat on the front. The solder will want to go to the hottest spot. There we are, just go straight in. Not a problem. There we go, job done. So that's two ways of doing the soldering. This is my preferred method. It's just that way I can just heat the flux up, burn it off, leave the layer, and not have to worry about any solder jumping all over the place. Alright, so let's just play around with a bit of scrap and just show you what you can do with soldering. So soldering is just like super hot gluing in a way. As long as you're okay with a blowtorch or a, whatever they call them elsewhere, one of these, then you should be pretty much right. Now for soldering, first things foremost, you want to make sure best you can your join's going to be flush. Less gap, the less noticeable there's a gap there at all. The last thing you want to do is having to add more solder to fill any gaps. It sort of doesn't really work. It does work to a minor extent, but it's, yeah, you'll notice it later on, especially in the polish stage. Just trying to avoid it, get your joins as flush as possible. So what I'm going to do is show how this can even just join onto there. It can join onto anywhere on here I want it to, as long as I sit it there and it stays put long enough for the demonstration. So move over here, find a clean spot, need a flat spot. Got an old brick, let's try this side, it's a bit cleaner. So I'm just going to stab that in there and do it this way so you can see. Just going to push that into there. Then we're going to rest this up against that and try and get that join nice and flush. Can take some playing around. I'm just pushing this into the brick. This is a fire brick, this one. There we go. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see that. Get right in place. Hopefully that stays like that while I solder it. I'll show you how I'd go about doing this, however anyone else does. So firstly, I'm going to give it some heat because I want to put some flux on there. We've got to clean that join. Now you should have your joins nicely freshly cleaned, sanded, whatever. We'll give it a quick pickle if you need. But what we're going to do, because this is just me experimenting on what I've found can be done, is if we give this a bit of heat, I don't want it super hot, just want it hot enough to do this. Right on that join, flood it with some flux. Gently heat it, just in case it bubbles and does move our silver around. Once I'm happy that's all burnt off, what I'm now going to do is add the solder right on that join. I want it to touch both pieces best I can, so I'll just cross it over like that. A little bit of heat. I'll heat both parts evenly. Goes on there. See how I've, I don't know if you can see, it's soldered to the ring part, the curved part, with a bit leaning over. The other part hasn't quite gone yet. That's me tacking at one side, tacking at the other, and then it will flood straight into the joint afterwards. So if we heat this bit up now, bang, in she goes. And we'll just give it a bit of heat, make sure it floods all the way through the joint. And again, job done. Now we can pick that up. We'll take that down here. Back up here. Have a look what we've done. So that's just soldered all the way around there. It's got a layer of flux still over the outside surface, but I can give that a bit of a bend. And it's that strong I can bend this without pulling away. It's nicely soldered. So the flatter and cleaner your joins are, the more surface contact area there is. So there's minimal solder really needed to get in there just to sort of fill that paper thin gap, if there was a gap. Fill all the little pores, micro cavities in between the two pieces. And so, yeah, that's how that easy that is to do. These are just bits of scrap, so it doesn't really matter too much. But you can join anything to anything, however you please. If you can get it to stay still while you do the soldering, that's probably the most technical part. There's things called third hands, where you've got a pair of these in sort of a ball joint connector stand that you can sort of get these to sit. Let's stop zooming in so much. These can sort of sit holding pieces in place if you want to do anything. But yeah, anyway, there's lots of ways to go about soldering. This has been one of them. Okay, while those rings are pickling, I'm going to get to and start making the bezels for the stones. We'll start with this one. So first I'm just going to file up one end. So then it's just playing around till I get this around this stone. So these are my little curved pair. They're flat on the inside, but they are curved. So it's hard to get straight edges, but I manage. So first I'm just gonna have my join halfway down the stone. We'll start this way up. And then just work our way around the stone. I usually go the other way around. We'll see. But this is a long piece of wire. I'm right-handed, so it's all gonna go that side. So what we start off with is I can see a lot better than you. I can see a point on the silver where I want that curve to start, which is roughly there. So give it a little kink, just a little starter bend, and then check it. That's where I want it to be. I've got to be careful not to get too sharp a bend in this. So there we go, it's our first corner. So I'm just gonna, it's a bit awkward to film all of this way, but it's more, 3 more corners like that, and I'll come back when I'm about to bring them together. Now, so I'm just about to mark it right about there. So I'll go and cut this and come back. There we are. So I'm just going to go and solder this. We'll get the joint a little bit more aligned first. It's a bit better. So we'll go solder this and I'll come back. Okay, while that's in the pickle, we'll get on with these. Rough enough's good enough. I'm teaching you bad habits. Rings. Okay, so we're going to get a half round. Just going to tidy up on the inside of this. So any protruding blobs of solder or misalignment in the joint or anything like that, mitigated slightly. That's why we get it round again. So this would just be a case of hammering. So there we go. It's around about the next notch down, if there was one. So that's one done. Two done. So now we'll go and give these a quick stamp. Okay, due to the fact that this is going to get cut out, I'm going to put my stamp opposite that, down the bottom of the ring then. This is a stamp that's 925, representing 925 parts out of 1,000 silver. The others are copper and some other stuff. Just really wanted to sink that in. Let's see if we can zoom in a bit better. 925. There we go. Alright, got these out the pickle. Now all we have to do with this one is put that little wire step I was talking about on the inside there. Sorry, that one's going to be a flat back. Little wire step on the inside there, and we're good to go. Once we do that, we can then cut the rings out, insert the setting into the ring. Okay, so here we've got everything set up on the base, ring set in. I've got the flux in place, and so we're just going to burn that off and get our solder in place. So here's what we have so far, fresh out of the pickle. So I'm going to go around this with a saw and cut this off rather than my snips. It's a bit thicker base than I'd usually use. So definitely use a saw. And then we're going to have to get these and figure out where they're going to sit, how much I need to cut out to fit these in, and cut those too. So I'll just get this one done first. So what was happening there is we're missing a few teeth. They're virtually non-existent, and the blade kept catching and I couldn't figure out why for a while there. Oh, that explains it. So there'll be a few teeth in amongst my filings. So that'll be interesting for the next melt. We'll have to make sure we run a magnet over it. Magnetise all the non-silver parts. There'll still be some impurities of some sort. But yeah, anyway. Now I'll just file this up, finish tidying it up, ready to set into the ring. Every bit counts. So now we need to mark out where these are going to sit. And by doing that, I'm going to sit this join in the center of that whilst looking down at the top and marking it. And that looks good. Same again with this one. Yep, and that looks good too. So from here, back to the saw, put a new blade on, and we've got to cut these not in towards the middle when you cut. You don't just cut straight down into the... I've got to cut that way because these edges are going to be straight, so they need to be cut down straight. So even though my mark is there, I'm going to realign that when I cut it to cut that way. Okay, so a lot of messing around there. Sorry, couldn't film it all. So we're just going to try and get this soldered without it falling apart or moving on me. Fun begins. Now for the other side. Job done. Okay, so here's our two rings, and I'm just going to go around and neaten up a few edges and corners, especially internally here. So I'm going to do that with a file. I won't film this, it's monotonous. Too much to film. So I'll get two and come back. Okay. Polish this up to 800, or pre-polished up to 800. We're going to set the stone in now, hopefully. Oh, in she goes. So now, I use my prong pusher, push these corners in and see how much more I need to file in the bezel. Fair way. Okay, so that's got most of the closing up started. There's a bit of a gap there, I'm going to have to close. To file it a bit thinner, I think. One down. One to go. Well, the worst happened. Straight up ripped this band-aid off. She's cracked. Straight through here. And you can see it on the bottom as well. Which has led, I can't see it on the bottom, to having to use a bit of Starbond thin, because that stone is in there. It's only just sort of fractured across here. This is not a good look and I don't recommend this. Rip it out, replace it. It is a nice stone though. I have spoken with the client and he's happy enough that I did this with it for now. I won't charge him. Oh dear, hazards of the trade. So anyway, that happened. See if I can show you. Right through here to here. I'm not happy. Oh well, is what it is. I'll get on with sanding and polishing. Alright. So this is the one with the crack across it. Sealed in there with some Starbond now. So yeah, what a shame. Really nice stone too. But that's the hazards of the trade, so it can happen. Thankfully this one can at least be salvaged somewhat. I wouldn't go selling a stone like that myself. And I think this is for the person. So they're happy enough with that. Unfortunate as it is, at least it wasn't this one. So this one's come up really nice. Bit of a picture stone. And yeah, so soldering. It's not really that difficult as much as giving it a go, playing around, seeing how it works, and then going and adjusting your technique until you get flush joins. The neater, the better. The more simple your joins will go together. And yeah, just play around a bit to start with. You don't just jump in the deep end. First thing is probably start making a ring. I've done a video on that. I'll chuck a link to that one in the description, just in case anyone's wondering how to make a ring. And then you go from there. Once you make a ring, you've got your annealing, bending, cutting, measuring, stamping, you know, all the fundamental, got to start with somewhere type things. So the simple ring, and then from there you can either add onto or cut out of to put a setting in, or leave it a plain ring. So yeah, hope that helped a little bit answer some questions on how to solder. Yeah, give it a go. You'll be surprised how you'll adapt quite probably easy, I reckon. It's, yeah, I don't want to say it's not difficult, but it's something you'll pick up along the way. You have to give it a go. There's only so much explaining can be done and showing until you just go, give it a go and, oh, right, that's it. That's all I have to do. No worries. And you're off and racing. Then it's just up to your imagination of how well you can construct something together and solder it together and it stay in one piece, and you finish it, polish it. And yeah, you'd be surprised what you can do, to be honest. I think a lot of you are very interested in cutting for starters, and Opal, so silversmithing is another logical step for you on what to do with your stones once you've cut them. And I'd suggest just about anyone safely and old enough to give it a go. Responsibly, I must add, just in case. Don't want to just tell everyone to go do it, but yeah, if you're interested in giving it a go, definitely just give it a go. It's quite cheap to start with, as silver's one of the cheaper metals. It's around $2 a gram once it's, you know, half round. It's pretty cheap if you just buy silver, but you can't do much with that without it being formed. So yeah, look at around at $2 a gram. Probably should have weighed these. Roughly see what silver we put in it, minus a couple of carats for the stone though, which I can't remember offhand. So you're looking at let's just say 8 grams. It was around about a 4 carat stone, 5 carat stone. 9 grams, so 8.5, say. So say 16.5 grams. That's $32 worth of silver roughly, plus the extra, rounded up to about 35, 36, just because of the scrap that was cut away and has to go to scrap. But yeah, it's $30, sort of material, and then your skill and talent and so forth on top. That's the stone, and then all of a sudden you've got a ring that's worth a few $100s. So yeah, definitely give it a go if you're interested. Jump in. And yeah, I'll leave this one here, and I've got plenty to do. Get on with the next one. Oh, I recut this one. Let's see if anyone picked up. So I'll just quickly flash up a photo here. Right, so if you didn't pick up on it, in that photo, up in this corner, there was a bit of a flaw right there somewhere, which is now eradicated. I had to go back and under the brown pad and chase that little flaw out. It was only superficial, thank God, otherwise I would have had to lose part of the stone. But salvage job. And this one now weighs, I can't remember what the weight in the other video, it was something, but yeah, only lost a fraction of a carat. Pretty sure it was around the 5 carat something mark anyway, 4 to 5. So yeah, anyway, just an update on that stone. So now she's perfect-ish. Yeah, so all right, and on that note, on to the next one. Cheers.